The decision had been made. They were walking, and the moment that decision left the lead agent's mouth, the operation changed shape. Not in theory, not on paper. In the street, in real time, the opening vehicle moved ahead as far as it could, trying to find a clean point of access near the credential lane. The follow vehicle adjusted behind them. The driver in the principal's vehicle held position just long enough for the close protection team to reposition around the doors. Nobody outside the vehicle noticed the change. That was the goal. Inside the vehicle, every second had weight. The lead agent looked once more toward the crowd. The stadium was visible now, but distance can be deceptive in a major event environment. What looked close through glass became very different once you stepped into the flow of thousands of moving people. He opened the door. Sound rushed in first. It wasn't just loud, it was physical. The vuvuzelas, the singing, the shouting, the horns, the vendors, the police whistles, the music coming from somewhere down the road. It all blended into one continuous pressure. The principal stepped out smiling. For him, this was the World Cup. For the team, this was now a live pedestrian movement through an uncontrolled crowd with a shrinking arrival window and a principal who was enjoying every second of it. The formation came together naturally. Not the kind of formation you would see in a training photo. Nothing exaggerated, nothing that announced protection, just bodies placed correctly. Lead slightly forward, principal centered. One agent offset, one trailing, eyes moving constantly, hands free. Radio traffic kept short. The lead agent did not want a security bubble so obvious that it created attention. At the same time, he could not allow the crowd to collapse around the principal. That is one of the hardest balances in executive protection. You need to create space without making people feel pushed. You need to maintain movement without looking like you are forcing it. You need to stay close enough to respond, but loose enough to blend into the environment. At first, it worked. The crowd was moving in the same direction, and that helped. Everyone was focused on the stadium. Nobody cared about one more businessman walking toward the match. Then the first person recognized him. It happened the way it usually happens. Not with shouting, not immediately. Just a look that lasted too long, a second look, a whisper to someone beside them. Then a phone came up. The principal saw it and smiled. That smile mattered, because it invited interaction. A supporter stepped closer and asked for a photo. The lead agent saw the change before the principal answered. One person stopping in a moving crowd is never just one person. It creates a small obstruction. People behind adjust. Others look over. Curiosity spreads faster than information. The principal slowed. The team slowed with him. The lead agent leaned in just enough to keep the movement alive. "Sir, we need to keep walking." Not harsh, not confrontational, just enough. The principal nodded, still smiling, and kept moving. The moment passed, but the team had learned something important. The environment was no longer anonymous. From that point forward, every pause would have a cost. They continued toward the stadium perimeter. The police presence increased as they got closer. Mounted units in the distance. Barriers. Temporary fencing. Stewards in bright jackets. Private security at access lanes. The architecture of the event began to reappear around them. That helped. Structure gives protection teams something to work with. But before they could reach the credential lane, the crowd compressed again. A checkpoint ahead had slowed the flow. People were no longer walking freely. They were bunching, shoulder to shoulder. The lead agent could feel the formation tightening without anyone saying a word. The principal was no longer moving through the crowd. He was inside it. That distinction matters. Movement through a crowd allows you to choose angles. Movement inside a crowd removes choices. The lead agent shifted slightly left, trying to identify a cleaner seam toward the barriers. The advance agent near the stadium came over the radio with a short update. "Credential access has shifted 50 meters north. Your original lane is now outbound only." The lead agent didn't respond immediately. He looked ahead, then left, then right. The problem was not the distance. 50 meters is nothing in an empty venue. In that crowd, 50 meters might as well have been another operation. The principal leaned closer. "Everything okay?" The answer had to be calm, always calm. "Yes, sir. Access point moved. We're adjusting." That was all. No explanation, no frustration, no mention that the route briefed that morning no longer existed. The lead agent turned the movement north. The team followed. The principal followed. The crowd did not care. And that is the reality of operating in mass gatherings. The crowd is not hostile. It is not cooperative either. It simply exists. It moves according to its own energy. And if your plan depends on the crowd understanding your needs, you do not have a plan. The team worked the edge of the flow slowly, patiently, a few meters at a time. The advance agent appeared near the barrier, arm raised just slightly, not waving, not drawing attention, just marking himself for the team. That small visual contact changed everything. The operation had a target again. The lead agent angled toward him, and the team moved through the final stretch. The credential lane opened ahead. Security check passes. The principal entered, and almost immediately the environment transformed. Noise remained, but control returned. There were layers again: screening, credential verification, police, event security, and private hospitality staff, defined lanes, restricted access, predictable movement. For the first time since leaving the vehicle, the team was back inside a system that made sense. The principal never saw it that way. He looked back toward the street and laughed. "That was incredible." The lead agent smiled. "Yes, sir." And he meant it. It was incredible. It was also the riskiest part of the day so far. The stadium itself was impressive, large, loud, alive. But from a protection standpoint, it was easier than the approach. That surprises people outside the profession. They assume the venue is the problem, the stadium, the match, the 80,000 people. But major venues, when properly managed, create layers of control: credentials, screening, access zones, CCTV, police coordination, medical teams, command posts, radio networks. The danger often lives outside those layers, in the transition, the drop-off, the walk, the parking area, the hotel lobby, the restaurant after the match, the informal moment nobody planned for. Inside the hospitality suite, the principal was exactly where he wanted to be. Clients greeted him. Photos were taken. Hands were shaken. The match atmosphere filled the room. For nearly 2 hours, the team watched the operation stabilize. The advance agent confirmed the egress plan. The driver confirmed vehicle repositioning. The opening vehicle reported that post-match traffic plans were already being modified by local police. Nobody was surprised. The plan was alive again, changing, but alive. Then the match ended. The final whistle blew, and the stadium erupted. Not just with sound, with movement. People stood at once. Thousands of seats emptied. Hospitality guests moved toward exits. VIPs moved toward lounges. Media moved toward mixed zones. Drivers moved toward pickup points. Police began shifting barriers. Everything started happening at the same time. The lead agent watched the principal carefully. This was the moment, not the match, not a rival. This, the emotional high after the event, when people feel the day is over. When they relax, when they think the hard part has passed, that is when new problems appear. A sponsor representative approached the principal with a smile and the kind of confidence that usually means trouble for a protection team. There was an invitation, a private reception, several high-profile guests, a few former players, a major client the principal had been trying to meet for months. The location was across the city. The event had not been on the schedule. The venue had not been advanced. The route had not been built. The principal looked interested immediately. Of course he did. From a business perspective, it made sense. From a security perspective, it was a blank space. The lead agent listened without interrupting. That is part of the job. You do not shut down opportunity just because it creates work. But as the conversation continued, the operation was already rebuilding in his head. Where is the venue? Who controls access? What is the neighborhood? How far from the hotel? What is the post-match traffic pattern? Can vehicles reach it? Is there medical nearby? Is local police presence available? Can the advance agent get there first? Can the opening vehicle break away? The principal turned. Can we make it work? There are questions that sound simple but contain an entire operation inside them. The lead agent answered carefully. We need a few minutes to verify the venue en route. The principal nodded. That was enough. Not approval, not rejection. A window. The advance agent moved first. He left the suite before most guests had even reached the corridor. The opening vehicle was redirected toward the proposed venue. The local liaison started making calls. The driver requested access instructions. The lead agent kept the principal in place as naturally as possible, extending conversations, slowing movement, buying time without making it obvious. That is another part of the job people rarely see. Sometimes protection is not about moving fast. Sometimes it is about delaying gracefully. The first update came back in under 10 minutes. The venue existed. Private reception. Corporate sponsor connection confirmed. Area acceptable but congested. Vehicle access difficult. Secondary entrance possible. No secure parking. The lead agent asked the only question that mattered. Can we control arrival? A pause, then the answer. Partially. Again, not ideal, but workable. The team had to decide whether partial control was enough. They had already lost the ability to return to the original plan cleanly. The stadium was emptying. Pickup areas were degrading. Every minute they waited created new traffic problems. Every movement option was getting worse. The principal wanted to go. The business opportunity was real. The risk was manageable, but not clean. The lead agent made the call. They would go, but not directly into the front entrance. The opening vehicle would hold near the secondary access point. The advance agent would meet them curbside. The principal would remain in the suite until vehicles confirmed movement. The team would avoid pedestrian exposure unless forced. The principal never heard most of that. He didn't need to. He only needed to know they could make it work. When they finally left the stadium, the environment outside had changed completely. Before the match, the crowd had been moving toward a destination. After the match, it was dispersing in every direction. That is harder. A crowd moving one direction has flow. A crowd leaving an event has fragments. Groups stop without warning. People argue about transportation. Drivers call passengers. Fans cross streets wherever they can. Police redirect vehicles. Vendors pack equipment. Buses block lanes. Every surface becomes temporary movement space. The motorcade recovered slowly. The opening vehicle guided the principal's vehicle through a service lane that had not been part of the original plan. The follow vehicle was delayed at a barrier for nearly 2 minutes before being released. 2 minutes is nothing in ordinary life. In a split motorcade, it feels much longer. The lead agent kept the principal's vehicle moving, but slowed slightly, allowing the follow vehicle to close distance. The principal was talking on the phone. He had no idea the convoy had briefly lost its normal spacing. That was good. The less the principal feels the friction, the cleaner the operation. They moved through Johannesburg at night under conditions that no advance can fully replicate. Headlights, police lights, crowds on sidewalks, supporters spilling from bars and fan zones, traffic signals overridden by officers, temporary closures. The city had become fluid. The route was not a line anymore. It was a negotiation. At the reception venue, the advance agent was waiting exactly where he said he would be. That mattered. In unstable movement, one reliable point can stabilize the entire operation. The arrival was not perfect, but it worked. The vehicle stopped short of the secondary entrance. The team dismounted. The principal moved quickly inside. No photos, no delay. No exposure beyond what was necessary. Inside, the reception was exactly what had been promised. Private, high-end, controlled enough, but not sterile. Guests were drinking, security was present, but focused mostly on access control. The principal was immediately pulled into conversation. The team settled into a new posture. Not relaxed, just stable. For the next hour, nothing happened. And that is often how these stories go. All the work, all the recalculation, all the risk management, all the small decisions, and then nothing happens. That is success. Near midnight, the principal was ready to leave. By then, the city had changed again. Traffic had thinned in some areas and intensified in others. Police resources had shifted. Some roads that had been closed were now open. Some that had been open were now blocked by crowds leaving fan zones. The advance agent recommended a different route back to the hotel. Not primary, not alternate. Something built from the conditions in front of them. The lead agent accepted it. At that point in the night, the original plan was more historical document than operational tool. The motorcade departed. This time, the principal was quieter. Tired, satisfied. He had experienced the match, met the clients, attended the reception. To him, the day had gone beautifully, and in a way it had. The hotel came into view shortly before midnight. The entrance was still active, but manageable. The team chose a side entrance already validated during the hotel advance. The vehicle stopped. The principal stepped out. One last movement. Lobby avoided, elevator secured, floor clear, room reached, door closed. Only then did the team exhale. Not dramatically, just enough. The kind of exhale that happens when the operation finally gives back the control it borrowed from you all day. Downstairs, the city was still celebrating. Somewhere in the distance, vuvuzelas were still sounding. The World Cup continued. For the principal, it would be remembered as an unforgettable experience. For the sponsors, a successful event. For the clients, a valuable connection. For the protection team, it would be remembered differently. The changed routes, the hotel adjustments, the abandoned vehicle plan, the walk through the crowd, the shifted credential lane, the split motorcade, the unplanned reception, the side entrance at midnight, all the details nobody else noticed. And that is the truth of executive protection at global events. The public remembers the spectacle. The principal remembers the experience. The team remembers the decisions. Because the operation is not won at the final whistle. It is won in the margins. In the 5-minute delay that prevented a worse movement. In the alternate entrance identified during the advance and used at midnight. In the opening vehicle that found the only workable access point. In the local liaison who knew which police barrier could be moved. In the lead agent who understood when to say yes, but only with conditions. That day, nothing happened. No incident. No confrontation. No headline. And that was the victory. Because in this profession, success often looks like silence. No one complains. No one notices. No one asks how difficult it was. The principal simply says, "Great job," and goes to sleep. And the team starts planning the next movement. Until next time, stay sharp, stay prepared, and stay operational.